Alrighty, I wanted to do off the cuff, off my brain discussion here, so I'm going to be kind of rambling, but I wanted to talk about the idea of mascot neglect in gaming. Now, as far as I know, I have to sort of set this up and give some context to the uninitiated for what this means, but mascot neglect, as far as I know, is when a particular character that was represented from a company, whether it's Capcom or Naughty Dog or something like that, that character is abandoned and there's no new games in said entry for a franchise. Like, it's a complete abandoning of a popular character that was from your childhood that may have represented the company. So the greatest example here is Megaman. There has been really not a lot of Mega Man titles come out in recent years, and it feels like Capcom has neglected it for franchises that sell more, like Resident Evil. There's a lot more Resident Evil games right now compared to a lot of Mega Man games, and we're not seeing the company mascot get any fulfillment whatsoever in terms of like later entries or later franchise sequels, which there was a recent Capcom poll in which Mega Man was getting some votes and people saying that they resonated with that character and they wanted to see him come back into fruition yet again. And I understand the frustration when it comes to mascot neglect. For a while, people were thinking that with Crash, and then Crash got like sold off and it got a second life. Mascot neglect, in my opinion, is when there's no second life at all for that character. There's no Jack and Daxter. There's no other mascots getting represented. I think most PlayStation studios moved on to other projects as well, which is why you're not really seeing them there. Like, we got Sly Cooper back on PS5 and that was cool. You could play the original first game, but we don't have a Sly 5, for example. So there might be people asking, why isn't Sucker Punch capitalizing on what made their bones in the first place, which is either outsourcing Sly again to hopefully a better company that's not Sanzaro Games, but why not outsource him again to someone actually good, like maybe Toys for Bob, where they could do a platformer and you could just work on like Ghost of Tsushima 2. Now I'm going to give my personal opinion on mascot neglect, and then I'm going to give a reason why I think this happens, which is clearly obvious, and I know it's not the reason you want to hear. I'm going to start with why it happens. Naturally speaking, the harsh reality and the poison pill that we have to swallow is that when a company makes newer IPs and when other characters get like more popular, you know, sometimes that mascot is neglected because of that. Like I said, Resident Evil is a prime example where that got like, it just blew the fuck up. It's Capcom's most like value franchise. It is an MVP at this point. Because of RE, they had to cater to an ideal, and this was purely for the money, and they said, we're gonna try to make a Resident Evil game every year as a mandate. We don't care what the media is. I think it extended to games and movies as well. Like, we're gonna try to make something every year as a mandate because this franchise is like way too popular right now, and we don't know about investing time into an older mascot like Mega Man. I'm sure they care about Mega Man. I'm sure that is the core integrated into the company. When they look back and they say, oh, what is the face of Capcom? It's always gonna be Mega Man. But sometimes when you have mascot neglect, it will boil down to the previous games either not doing too well, not selling too well, and they don't want to take as many risks with the IP as they used to do, because it was wholly different on the PS1 era. We got Mega Man Legends, we got a slew of Mega Man X games, classic Mega Man games. He was all over the place. He was getting as much love as you could arguably say RE at the time, where it started to blossom as a franchise itself. Now, when I want to go back real quick, because again, I know there's going to be some disagreements here, but I just want to cover my back real quick. This does not happen for everything. There's still the idea of either a mascot getting second life, which is happening with Crash Bandicoot, or there's the idea that there are developers that still care. Like, we're still kind of getting Ratchet and Clank games. Now I know Insomniac's gonna be mostly a Marvel studio, but they're still trying to wedge in Ratchet here or there. They haven't gone anywhere in terms of like neglecting their franchises. It really hurts though when a franchise is abandoned and it doesn't get second life and they're just sitting on those IPs and they don't do anything with them. And I understand the fan aggravation, but I also do agree sales factor in a lot to this and other creative ambition. And when you create other IPs, it's an unfortunate casualty when something you create gets more popular than your franchise mascot, and eventually it's like, I don't know, you seen that meme where the guy is like looking back at the other woman and his girlfriend is sort of like looking at him strange, like, what the fuck are you doing? It's something like that, where the new hotness is being celebrated. I'm sorry, my throat is like so dry right now, but still, I've been yapping, man. I've been yapping a lot. It affects me mentally and physically, all right? So I'm just throwing that in there, if my voice sounded weird for like a second, but still, it's that new fresh car that people want to hop on. They want to get all the cash from it. They want to make sure it's running just fine. It's making a new well-oiled machine, and that sucks for fans of like an older franchise. And I think the main thing we have to look at for mascot neglect, and if you believe that it's not as monetary to be even in the AA or AAA space, then this is the opportunity to like go out, reach out for a smaller team, an indie team, a team that is dedicated to the cause, that maybe can internally create games for your mascot without wasting too much money. And I'm sure it's not like a resource hog to make a small scale 2D platformer. I would imagine 3D takes more mechanics, but I don't think that a simple 2D platformer being handled by a nice outsourced studio where they have merit and they're passionate and they want to do it, I don't think that would be a bad thing for reviving an IP yet again and not having that mascot neglect. There was a time where people were thinking, oh shit, well, I think platformers are coming back again. I think they're going to be revived again around the time that Cuphead and Crash Insane happened. It was a big affinity for 3D platformers and 2D platformers and enjoying this crazy hand-drawn art style that Cuphead was exhibiting at the time. And I thought to myself, yeah, maybe we'll get another resurgence. We'll get more of these. And we've seen like a couple of things go back and kind of kill it with nostalgia. We saw Streets of Rage 4. I know it's not a platformer, but we saw that big drive and love, and we saw beat 'em ups come back for a while, but it never really stuck, so to speak. And I'm just wondering, like, what happened? And I just think that, you know, ideas, once again, it's all back to creativity, back to me. And we need to see a lot more of that as opposed to mascot neglect. And going back to that Capcom poll, this is why I wanted to make this video. The big thing that got voted on is Capcom reviving their IPs and the community giving them feedback from there saying, we want to see new Megamans, we want to see new Dino Crisis, we want to see all of that. And that was the big answer and the big feedback they need to take away from this poll. And I think there is some, you know, correct truth here when, if you have like something like mascot neglect or IP neglect, trying to focus on like the big new thing, you run the risk of creativity with your IPs being less varied. I know it might be easier that way to chase the dragon, chase the popular new thing that gets more success than your previous mascot, but by leaving your previous mascots and abandoning old IPs, you run the risk of things drying up creatively. You won't have your Dino Crisis games, or you won't have your Mega Man games, or you won't have your Breath of Fires back in the past. That's sort of a thing of why this poll with Capcom that they recently took, and I will link this in the description. It literally says you need to revive your old school IPs as a constructive criticism towards Capcom, because people want to see these older games come back into some sort of limelight, and they know, like, it's cool. Okay, Resident Evil being in the limelight is cool and getting remakes, and people are obviously looking forward to that as well, but they want to see a revival, and they want to see what is essentially Capcom's like golden age come back, which is where they just took risks, they were creative, they were experimental, and that's the things that you kind of need as a studio. You want to be known for multiple things as opposed to one. It's kind of why I also liked Neil Druckmann's statement when he said we aren't going to be the Last of Us studio forever. We're going to branch out, we're going to do new things, we're going to be inventive, and that's something that they need to do. As a Last of Us fan, that's something they should be doing as a company. And I want to see what they do, not only with newer IPs, but with the potential revival of older IPs if they decide to do it. I'll be all there for it. I'll be there to show up and support. But yeah, I just think that once again, it's important to understand where you are going and how you started. And how you started sometimes is mostly that company DNA with that imprint of that initial mascot that everyone grew to love. And if you could do more creative ideas with that mascot, then why not make new games? If you can, however, I can also understand the other way, where it's like, I've moved on from this and I want to try something more daring and bold, so to say. I don't have better words to illustrate that, but something daring and bold, and if it catches on as a new IP and people go for it, you might create potentially new mascots as well. It's not the worst thing in the world sometimes, in my opinion, to move on, because if you move on successfully, you can also create newer mascots, newer dynamic games, newer gameplay loops. And I think that's also a testament to new IPs needing to exist in the process. If you're going to go that route and neglect the old, what are you replacing it with? That is a serious hardcore discussion that could be brought up if they're doing this for IP neglect with older mascots. Either way though, I'm kind of glad of companies that still give it the college try. I'm still glad that like Sonic is still around. I'm still glad that like someone gave a shit about Crash Bandicoot and that's still here to the masses. Just keep supporting these games and I'm sure people are going to keep making them. Either way, this is Renegade Operative signing out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my discussion on mascots and IP neglect with those mascots. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Which childhood character or hero from any form of media got neglected, and would you like to see them get rebooted? Sound off, let me know, and you know, we'll chop it up in the comments. I'm signing out. See you later. Take care of yourselves, and once again, peace out.